is no little video made. This is a 71 Chevelle. I tucked the bumpers on this thing, moving it back about a ½ inch, and I do some metal work here and bring these bumper ends, being they stick out away from the body. I just drew some lines on there, don't mind those. And also, you're getting rid of this and moving it to the bottom so it's not sticking out. So this is the before I do any cutting. Sorry, I'm a little hoarse, not sure why, but also you can use the caliper to measure from like different points. You know, like if you want to measure from like this point to the tape, you could set it to where your measurements are accurate, you know. It just makes it easier to. You could also do like this. Just a simple hand measurement, unless one hand is super much more bigger than the other. That'll give you a baseline. You can start with your hand, draw your line, then pop your tape. I use tape because it gives you an edge. You can do different radiuses with the tape and it'll keep your cuts uniform. You make it too curved, it's just a little more difficult to cut straight. Next thing you want to do is you got, I took the bolts, left the bolts in. To the brackets, I left them tight. To the frame, they're loose. And I take vice grip clamps and I put the vice grip clamps on here on both sides, to where I can take my hand and I can hit it with a little bit of force and make some minor adjustments. This bumper has some damage here and there, like a little high spot here, so I'm gonna mark all these with a Sharpie. That way when I pull it off, I can straighten some of that stuff out. The bottom is the same way. These tow truck guys just think they can hook to anything. The rear frame was all bent due to the same reason. Probably the same tow truck driver. Maybe his first day on the job, who knows? Obviously don't know how to tow a car. But that's exactly what this is from them hooks, you know? It's not a hold down point. For any of you tow truck drivers out there, take note. So, you know, make sure all your sheet metal on the car is, you know, lined up to the fenders, the doors, the quarters, and make sure everything lines up on the car before you go cutting on anything and trying to change any of the design of the car. Because if any of that stuff's not right and you go and you start cutting on stuff, then when you do line that stuff up, you're gonna have all kinds of problems. So always make sure that all your sheet metal is lined up perfectly. I'm trying to, before I take this car apart, the sheet metal lines up nicely. So I'm trying to get this stuff out to the chrome shop because it's gonna take the longest to get back, compared to just ordering parts. Because Advanced stays pretty busy with their plating, but they're pretty much all I use for everything as far as plating goes. No matter if it's chrome or gold or whatever, you know, they do it all. So, all right, got this piece, both the ends cut off. I deburred both of them just with a little ink grinder, kind of get some of the sharp edges off so you don't cut your fingers. And this is how I tuck bumpers. I mean, everybody probably has a little bit different way, I guess, as long as you get the same desired results. So I cut this. I'll have to move the hole on the bracket when I do that, but this was the only flat spot where I knew I could take out like as much as I need to bring that bumper in. And then on the inside here, I left that bottom so we know exactly where the bracket's originally going, since tucking the bumper is merely a cosmetic deal. And I got some of this fine line stuff I use for many different things, painting and stuff. And you can use this and run it right along the edge here. That way you cut exactly the same amount off of both bumpers. Everything you want to do exactly the same from one side to the other, all your measurements, everything, because if not, you're going to wind up with a wonky job and nothing's going to line up exact, and you're going to be having to shave and cut to fit all kinds of stuff, and it's just a whole bunch of extra time that's it's not needed. You know, if you just take a few extra steps and measure everything properly and take your time with it, you'll get the desired results. Notice how I got the tape popped on there. It's just a 1/4 inch, so we're just gonna go 1/4 inch first and see how that works out. And then I ran a little line with the Sharpie. Sometimes the tape wants to fly off. Sometimes it gets hot and falls off. First time I'm using fine line on cutting metal this thick. This thick of metal tends to get a little bit hotter when you're cutting, depending on how fast you're going, trying to rush through it. So I did put a little Sharpie line on there just to kind of give you a little extra guideline, or if you just want to pull the tape and go by the Sharpie, you could do that as well.